Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. Vijayendra Singh Tawar, Associate Professor in English, and presently I have been posted at Government College, Guda. In the video series, which is being prepared by me, today's video is meant for the students of BA Part 2nd, Subject English Literature, Paper 1st, and the topic which has been discussed in this video is critical appreciation of Kamala Das' famous poem, My Grandmother's House. We have done already its explanation, and also I have given you the critical appreciation in Hindi so that you can understand it in a better way. Now let us come to something about the poet. Kamala Das was born in 1934 and died in 2009. She was from Kerala. She was a Malayalam poet. She suffered in her life a lot. She got married and there was a big gap between the age of her and her husband. That is why their relationship was not normal, and it gave rise to many complexities in her life. And we noticed that in her poems, and she has described them in a most candid manner, that is in a frank manner, openly in her poems. So that is why she is known as or labeled as a confessional poet. That is her personal life. We can say she was not satisfied in her personal life. But if we keep all the achievements which she has achieved during her lifetime, she is bracketed, or she is called as one of the member of the trinity of Indo-Anglian poets. The other two poets being Nissim Azkil and A.K. Ramanujan. Trinity means the three top poets of Indo-Anglian literature. She is one of the most distinctive and different. She is not just a poet who follows her predecessors. No, she was a quite different poet and original of Indian poets writing in English today. Her poetry has a large autobiographical content. She is labeled as a confessional poet, as I told you just now. Her poetry is all about herself, about her intensely felt desire for love, for emotional involvement, and her failure to achieve such a relationship. And she wanted to have some kind of emotional relationship with somebody, but in her life she tried with many people, but she did not get it. Sex and love are a major theme in her poetry. And she writes in the most candid, that is openness manner, very frankly. She does not hesitate to describe a situation which we might think that it is not good. She doesn't care for the restrictions and restraints, limitations, rules and regulations put by the society, say social taboos, which the social code and convictions of society impose upon her. Means in society, we are expected not to do many things. That is a social code, you can say. But she did not care for that. Now the poem entitled My Grandmother's House is an admirable lyric written by Kamala Das. It was first published in Summer in Calcutta in 1965. That is, she published her anthology of poems entitled Summer in Calcutta, and this poem was included in that anthology. It brings out the poet's nostalgic yearning for her family home in Malabar. As I told you, she was from Kerala, so she, after marriage, she was not happy with her husband. She used to remember her past. The same thing has been stated in this poem, where she had passed some of the happiest days of her life in Malabar along in the company of her grandmother. She spent some of the happiest days of her life. They have been described in this poem. And where her old grandmother had sowed her love and her affection on her. The grandmother is remembered in a number of lyrics. It is true that grandmother is also remembered in many other poems, and both the family house and the grandmother are closely identified. They are identified with each other. In the present lyrics, he remembers both the house and the grandmother who once lived in it but is now dead. Grandmother is now dead, though there was a time when the poetess, when she was just a small or little child, little girl, she used to live with her grandmother in that house. Thus, it is a remembering the past poem written in the form of a dramatic monologue. In a dramatic monologue, there is a speaker. That speaker speaks. There can be one listener or more than one, but they do not interfere into his or her speech. The speaker here in this poem, that is my grandmother's house, is Kamala Das herself. And she seems to be talking to her husband, who is a silent listener, you can say, who however says nothing in the poem. Thus, in form, this poem resembles the dramatic monologues written by Robert Browning. Now, let us come to the poem. Very small poem, it is very small poem. The poetess recalls the house, remembers the house where she once used to live with her grandmother. Now she lives in a different city which is far away from that house. Her grandmother was fond of her and from she used to receive a lot of love. Means she used to spend her childhood days in the company of her grandmother and both were very happy. She was loved then by her grandmother. The grandmother had died, now present, she is dead, and even the house shared her grief. In a word, the memory makes the poetess sad. The poetess was in those days a little girl. She was too young to read at that time, and the books in the house seemed to her as horrible and repulsive as snakes. Means at that time, she did not know anything. She knew only her grandmother who used to shower her affection on her. The death of her grandmother had robbed the little girl of her capacity to feel. Now, this is a great loss for Kamala Das. Her blood seemed to freeze. It became cold as the moon. Since then, the poetess thinks of going to that house in order to look at the things inside it through the windows. Means it is her yearning or desires to go there and to look inside the house. But the house is deserted and no one lives in it. The window remains closed. Nevertheless, she would like to sit there all alone. She would listen to the blowing of the cold winter wind. She will go there and would like to listen to the blowing of the winter wind. The wind would remind her dear memories of her grandmother and freeze her blood once again. She would be able to experience a feeling of utter hopelessness. She would come back from the deserted house with some of the darkness with her to her residence in the city where she would only lie down in her bed room to meditate upon her memories of the past. Darkness here means sad memories of the past. She would like to with those memories, and in the city she will remember them and become sad. Addressing her husband, the poetess says that he would not be able to believe that she had lived in such a house, had felt proud of herself. She also received the love of her grandmother. She tells her husband that she feels lost in the life. She yearns for love, begs for it even from strangers, but fails to get it. She wants now love in her grown-up stage of life, but she is not getting love from anyone, even not from strangers. She does not get even small change or coins. Means in small quantity she is not able to get love. Her love hunger remains unsatisfied. There is a void vacuum, a blank within her, and she seeks to fill it with love, but to no avail. But she is not able to get success in this target. Now, you can say comments, critical comments on this poem. The first thing, the poem offers a striking contrast between Kamala's days, childhood days, and her present life as a growing up woman. Yes, there is a contrast. If we compare her childhood time and her grown up time, she was happy when she was a child, but she is not happy when she is grown up. She got love during her childhood days, while now she gets no love from anybody. She feels as if she has lost her way in life. It appears to her as if she has wandered from the path of love and affection. She has gone to somewhere, or she has walked on that path where she has no love in her life. Her sense of loss is intense. That is why she seeks love even from strangers like a beggar. Means she is very, very, can say, desirous to get love, but she is not able to get love. Thus, we have here a poem expressing the author's sense of deprivation and her feeling of utter hopelessness. She is deprived of all kind of love from in her life, and she is full of hopelessness. Pathos, that is affecting the feeling, making somebody sad, is the keynote of this poem, is the main point, main idea in this poem. There is no doubt that the poetess arouses in us a deep sympathy for her plight. That is her condition. If we make analysis of the present condition of the poetess, we feel deep sympathy for her lacking love in her life. Anybody's life would seem to be meaningless if there is no love in it. It is a fact. The sense of the futility of life has most effectively been conveyed to us by this poem. There are some key phrases in this poem which express the sense of disappointment and the feeling of futility. Here are the most significant lines and or phrases in this context. See the lines. The house withdrew into silence. These are the phrases which have been used by the poet, and they how that she was lacking love in her life. She was not able to get even in small quantity the love. Her life was full of disappointment and hopelessness. And my blood turns cold like the moon. Means no emotion, no warmth, no positive thinking. Just listen to the frozen air. Pick an armful of darkness and beg now at a stranger's door, at least in small change. These are the phrases, these shows her hopelessness in life. The poetess has made use of apt figure of speeches. Cold like the moon is quite an appropriate symbol. An armful of darkness is quite satisfactory metaphor. Like a brooding dog is a clumsy simile. In small change is a perfectly appropriate metaphor. Means the poet has made use of figure of speeches in an effective manner to convey what she wants to convey to the reader through appropriate similes and metaphor particularly. The poem is remarkable for its compression and for its condensation of its material. That is what the poet wants to say. She has stated in the fewest possible words. Aphoristic style, we can say, aphoristic style. The powerful emotional effect has been achieved by the author by the use of minimum possible number of words. See, means minimum words have been used to express or to give impact or powerful impression to the reader, for the reader. Kamala Das has shown a remarkable capacity to avoid garrulity, talking too much, extra, and copiousness. The poem is compact and well knit so far as its structure is concerned. It is a very short poem, and the poet has stated a big message using few words. There is nothing irrelevant in the poem, no digression at all. The poet is always targeting her point, to the point. She is talking to the point. The style of the writing here is terse. That is, she has used aphoristic style. She has stated what she wanted to say in the fewest possible words. The poem is justly famous as one of Kamala Das' poetic achievement. The poem is not only a poem, it is regarded as one of the Kamala Das' greatest achievement, as she has shown her talent of composing poems in a very masterly manner. Thank you very much.